Earlier in the week, the Central Bank of Nigeria's Monetary Policy Committee increased the benchmark interest rate by 200 basis points to 24.75%, up from 22.75%. Arise News correspondent Nkechi Nana was at the briefing and tells us more.
At the second Monetary Policy Committee meeting of 2024, Nigeria's central bank unveils a series of pivotal decisions, including raising interest rates for the second time in a matter of weeks to cool inflation.
Decisions of the MPC. The committee's decisions are as follows. 1. Raise the MPR by 200 basis points to 24.75 from 22.75%. 2. Adjust the asymmetric corridor around the MPR at plus 100 to 300 basis points to minus 300 basis points. 3. Retain the cash reserve ratio of deposit money banks at 45%. 4. Adjust the cash reserve ratio of merchant banks from 10% to 14%. And 5. Retain the liquidity ratio at 30%.
With inflation soaring past the 30% mark in annual terms, its highest in nearly 3 decades, the bank keeps tightening its grip on monetary policy. Governor Olayemi Cardoso highlights the committee's resolve to combat these price pressures, with expectations set for a moderation starting May.
The considerations of the committee at this meeting focused on the current inflationary pressures and the need to anchor inflation expectations, as well as ensure sustained exchange rate stability. These considerations underscore the importance of the CBN's commitment to the price stability mandate and the need to urgently bring inflation under control to ensure that purchasing power of ordinary Nigerians is restored in the short to medium term.
In addition to the interest rates, Governor Cardoso articulates the committee's broader economic strategy, underscoring the bank's stance on several key issues currently shaping Nigeria's economy.
With respect to the foreign exchange forwards, we determined that a number of these transactions did not qualify, and I've said this before. In some cases, you had some requests which, you actually had some allocations that were made in millions of dollars, which were never requested for. You also had some where they had no naira, and they were also allocated, huge sums of foreign exchange, and the list goes on. And it was for that reason that we refused to validate those particular transactions. We refused to validate them because, apart from the fact that documentation was not satisfactory, in many cases, they were outright illegal. We have been consistent in saying that we will withdraw from direct interventions. The fertilizer that was given out was the residue of an intervention that had been done before we came into office. It was not something that was done directly by us. And the options were either to leave them there to rot away or to give them to those that we believed had the capacity to distribute. And that is exactly what we did with the handing over to the Ministry of Agriculture.
With the nation's eyes fixed on the Apex Bank, there's hope
I'm now being joined by lawyer, politician, businessman, and philanthropist, Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, who represents Ondo South Senatorial District in the National Assembly, for a look at the likely implications of those moves by the CBN, especially from a political, economic, and governance points of view. We shall, of course, also try to touch as much as possible on a few other critical developments in the polity. Good day, Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, and thank you for joining us on This Day Live, this Sunday talk show.
Thank you very much, Ruben. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Well, Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, recently, in January actually, you were at the World Economic Forum in Davos. And one of the things you did on that occasion was to call for support, to call on world leaders to support the Tinubu administration in Nigeria. Now, since the Tinubu administration took over, we've seen quite a number of moves, quite a number of efforts at reform, at moving the country forward. And I quote what President Tinubu said recently when he set up a tripartite economic team, including federal government officials, state governors, and also organized private sector. He said, we are doing what we can to bring life back to the economy. We are not saying that we have all the answers, but we are trying. And I ask you, in terms of what the government has done, policy-wise, and also, some of the moves by the Central Bank of Nigeria to address monetary policy, is the Tinubu government trying?
Thank you, Ruben. I think the government is performing beyond the basic point. And I'm saying this, if you look at the data before the government came into office and where we are now. One key example I will give, or variable, is GDP to cash ratio. So the president came in and met a cash ratio of 1.3% to the GDP. So now you take over a company and the cash available is 1.3 to the worth of the company. Now, where the company is in billions or in trillions, and then the cash available is 1.3, how do you manage that? That's a critical problem for the administration. And when they came in, they were able to start looking at that. But it's not an easy task, And if you look at debt ratio to GDP, again, we were having about $77 billion dollars as debt, moving from 27 before Buhari took over the government. So Buhari left Nigeria at about $77 billion. Now GDP to current accounts, where the government is about to draw money, is completely empty. So I'm sure the president and the government must have been deeply embarrassed by what they saw when they came in. And if you take it from there, Nigeria was at complete financial dangerous lane, unless you the right language. So the Tinubu administration is to come with a strategy, one, to arrest that financial dangerous lane and bring the economy back to where it's supposed to be. And I can tell you, that wasn't going to be easy. If you look at the population, you look at GDP to debt ratio, you look at cash at hand, you look at GDP to cash, you look at unemployment, you look at inflation. Now you look at the central bank itself. Before Tinubu came, the central bank itself doesn't have a mind of its own. Central bank was phenomena. The mind of central bank was in the villa. I mean, they were doing various interventions. Somebody is selling fertilizer, CBN will intervene during Buhari. They are selling rice, CBN will intervene. You take loan from the bank, CBN will intervene. Whatever you want to do, you want to buy wine and drink, CBN will do intervention. So the CBN, as at that time of Emefiele, does not have a mind of its own. It was a phenomena. And as church, it couldn't perform much. Now coming back to the New Hope agenda, and I'm not Tinubu spokesman, I can tell you very clearly that his thinking is to face welfareist economy. Looking at economic principles that have to do with welfareism by distilling practical economic variables and palliatives to the local level to make sure that that this is where we're going to have the bunch. I mean, any pain in the economy will come from this side. And that was where we have this palliative issue, budget, burara, and all sorts of things coming up. But that was the first thing that he did. And that was very, very important. And again, the issue of subsidy on petrol also came on board. Because again, few people are benefiting from this. You want to buy petrol and sell your petrol station, Central Bank is doing intervention by giving you money to go and do that, even when we don't have an account. These are very bad management practices that I think is not right for a developing country like Nigeria. So coming on board, the Tinubu administration have to sit down very, very well. It's not easy because the data we are seeing are not favorable. And the consequences of the data is to say that we have a misfortune in the economic system. And to look at it, you also have the political issues coming from politics. That you also have issues coming from security dilemma, And what they have been able to do was to pick it one after the other. One, let's look at welfareism economics, and then look at palliative going, distilling to the local level and the common man. Then let's take the issue of security very importantly. Let's do supplementary budget to arrest security and unrest. And you can see that the security index have quite gone up by about 25% positive, meaning that something is being done, to arrest insecurity and insurgency in Nigeria. Be that as may, coming to the central bank you talk about.
Yes.
Yes.
Please go ahead. You wanted to talk about the central bank.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the coming to the central bank, the central bank, like I told you at the beginning of this interview, that the previous central bank is effing phenomenal. It doesn't have a mind of its own. So this central bank, under the leadership of Cardozo, is trying to create a mind of its own. Then it has to come with reforms. It has to say, okay, the capital base of the banks are not good enough, but I don't support that I can go to 200 billion or whatever billion. Each bank should be categorized, distilled into capacity where each investor can handle what he wants to handle. So, for example, merchant bank, they are not supposed to have, general activities. It's supposed to be restrained activity. Activity have to be restrained in a way that we can't know specifically what you are doing. Commercial bank, but I understand it. You see, as a businessman, what the central bank is concerned about is that it doesn't also want to see few people flying jets all over the place, and that's what the bank becomes the home bank. These are not right. And if you look at inside the bank critically, you also see that some banks are water with liquidity, and they don't know what to do with the liquidity. So central bank will go to commercial bank and be mopping those liquidity in order to create economic stability. These are problems. So why not to convert most of these things? If you can now increase the capital base, it might be that they might be using the capital base for what they want to do. But again, keeping too much liquidity ratio also means that you cannot lend. You cannot borrow money to people to do business. A government alone cannot do the business that we have. So the key point is that for the central bank, the new monetary policy rollout, fantastic. But it should be done with a way that we were looking at it from bank categorization. Because we have to look at it, category A, what can you do? What capacity do you have? Why I say that is because of competitiveness. Because if you look at in London, for example, you can own a commercial bank with $20 million. So why do you want to own the same bank in Nigeria with $300 million? This is where we have the competitive advantage that I think might be a big challenge. But if 4 or 5 banks can march together without necessarily taking away the ownership of those banks in radical form, then it might make sense because the bank can now confront heavy transactions like infrastructure, which require a lot of heavy spending. So this way, I don't think there is any creating a mind of your own. As a central bank, it's important to confront the variables that are affecting the economy and putting the economy in a financial dangerous lane. So central bank have to pay invoices and do so many things that are outstanding over there. And you can see why you have the disparity in the foreign exchange and why it was moving at a time, that people were getting worried about what is happening. Okay, but now the government will also have time to stabilize, and balance. Let me finish that. So it cannot balance in one day. So gradually, momentum is gathered, and the government, it's like taking off an aircraft. You know, you gather the air gradually, and then you balance in the course of the journey. And I think Tinubu administration is doing quite well in approaching it from that foundation. At least recovering Nigeria from financial dangerous lane. We should give him kudos for that.
Well, some people will say maybe you are speaking as an APC chieftain. After all, it's your party that is in government. But if we look at some of those policies, the CBN governor says that, look, he has an obligation to reduce inflation, and what we have seen is aggressive tightening policy. He says he also has to balance the foreign exchange regime. He has to check the volatility of the naira. And, you know, the CBN is already claiming some achievements in this regard, deepen financial intermediation by strengthening the banking sector. But the ordinary man out there who is dealing with food inflation that is close to, that's over 37%, and who is surviving on palliatives. Now people look for rice, even if it is 10 kg of rice. So the question is, what is the, I mean, we are not seeing the effect. Prices have not come down. Some economists say, oh, it's a lag effect. It will take a while. How much longer do we have to be looking for palliatives before we begin to see the results of this intervention?
Thank you very much, Ruben. Let me tell you, economics operates by short-term effects and the long-run effects. Don't forget, in Davos, I give a paper on these variables and how we can make sure that developing country move forward. But there's a major project, major problem that you have to understand. The fact that the debt ratio to GDP globally is 235%. So how can Nigeria operate? Nigeria is not a country that is in isolation of the world economy. We are going to World Bank in the next few days to look at the economic outlook globally, regionally, and as well as the Nigeria factor. But the key point here is that if you have a debt ratio to GDP of the world, the entire world, at 235%, it means that the economy, the global economy, is overspent by 235% of its worth. This will distill effect to Nigeria, whether you like it or not. So what the Tinubu Administration is doing is to say, let me take the common man out of this as much as I can do from this bet. Because Nigeria, whether you are in Ghana, whether you are in Sierra Leone, whether in the UK, and if you want to be very honest with me, which I know you will, obviously you know there's inflation in England. The debt ratio to GDP in London is 105. It means that England has overspent their worth by 5%. In America, it's 135% GDP to debt ratio. It means America itself, whatever it worth, it has borrowed exceedingly 35% of its value. But Tinubu is still managing Nigeria economy at 40% GDP to debt ratio. And you are saying, you are crying like this. If I were Tinubu, I would have taken Nigeria economy to 100% GDP to debt ratio. But it sounds saying, let me maintain it at 30%, 40% GDP to debt ratio when America is 135% GDP to debt ratio. Even China is 45% GDP to debt ratio. Nigeria, 40% GDP to debt ratio. Now, when you look at all of this, global economy itself, global economy outlook, when you put the economy together, is 235% GDP to debt ratio. So how do you want to manage this that there will be no inflation? How do you want to manage this that there will be no employment? How do you want to manage this that infrastructure will be beaming at you? This is not about APC or whatever. I'm an economist. I'm a scholar on my own, at my own level. I'm looking at it as a nation. And you will agree with me that there is no way Nigeria economy can operate outside the global economy. You know that. So if the global economy is 235% GDP to debt ratio, then you have issue, which is global.
Well, Senator Ibrahim, one of the recommendations that you have made to the Tinubu administration is that the Tinubu administration should borrow. The coordinating minister of the economy says the emphasis is to generate revenue, not to borrow. But you insisted, I think, was it 2-3 months ago, that the Tinubu government must borrow to be able to do so much. Do you still hold on to that position? Whereas the official position that we have been told is that borrowing is not the focus. And many Nigerians say, if we borrow, we will squander the money anyway. So why don't we find other ways instead of going to borrow for conspicuous consumption?
Thank you very much. I didn't advocate that we should borrow for consumption. Dubai has a population of 12 million people. Dubai, they are owing $168 billion. Dubai has a population of 12 million people. They are owing $168 billion. And they're paying back. The money was meant for infrastructure development. And you are a living witness of empirical evidence of church development in Dubai if you visit. Now, Dubai have come to term to say the following countries should not come to their country for visa. They are stopping visa for Nigeria, Ghana, all of things like that. Dubai, that was begging Nigeria some years back. They went borrowing large scale. They distilled the money into infrastructure. And then they were able to fix the economy very well. And they are paying back. What I was saying is that if you borrow for a very long time, 50 years or thereabouts, and then the lender will give you, you can borrow so much that you can even pay existing debts and negotiate it out. And then whatever is surplus will support your naira, and at the same time, you put that on your infrastructural development. Then you come back home and say, where did I get things wrong? And then you begin to fix things, and then you can have enough money to do your infrastructure. And of course, in 2024 budget, we have a borrowing element about 25%, 22%. So it's not as practically that government will not borrow money. No, that is not right. It may not be the focus of the government to go borrowing, rapport. But what I'm saying as a matter of strategy is that you need money to run economy. You cannot do ways and means. Buhari has already printed 30 trillion naira. Which is not, directed at any significant project. So now you cannot continue to print money, and then the Tinubu administration is not interested in printing money. So if you are not going to print money, so tell me, where do you get the money to finance the economy? And when I said borrow 6 months ago, 7 months ago, it's not as juicy as today because the borrowing market is drying up. Countries are getting more loans and then doing their infrastructure. You need to fix the infrastructure. Remember, I did say this at World Economic Forum. We have 46 billion bitumen seated in Ino State, in Nagbabu, Ibutako, over there. And if we don't do anything about it, since 1967, since 1969, when we discovered oil, Lolo Ibiri, we have never had a legislation on bitumen. We brought one before the current Senate, which is about third reading now. It's important that we make income from bitumen. 300,000 kilometers of road in Nigeria. We've only done 30,000. 270,000 kilometers of road are not affected yet. They are not touched yet. You cannot, you will be able to borrow money to develop things like bitumen and all that, and then be able to export bitumen to other countries and earn income so that your dependency on petroleum will be reduced. The money is not to be borrowed to pay salary. The money is to face critical infrastructural development. And by the way, in the last 1 year, IMF World Bank has borrowed some money, which I am aware of and all that. But we are trying to say, simplify the economy. Don't run with too much of nostalgia energy. Borrowing is an extra gear in business. It's like when you are driving your car, you are in gear 4, and then imagine you can just get gear 4, gear 5, and 6. It makes life easy. You need a little acceleration, but you have to pay back. But it must be a long time borrowing. So myself and the current Minister of Economy, we are saying the same thing. He is saying we don't want to focus on it as the first thing on our dashboard. But I'm saying, how do they finance the economy if you don't do borrowing? You have to borrow somehow, whether you like it or not. And you have to borrow on time because the lending market is drying up. And very soon, you will get nothing to borrow because GDP to debt ratio globally, in the global economic outlook, is 235%. Every country wants to borrow something. Even America is still borrowing.
Senator Ibrahim, very briefly, one of the things you presented a paper when we were in Davos in January. I think that was abandoned projects, something on abandoned projects. And we have quite a number of abandoned projects in Nigeria. Well, what do you have to say about those projects or assets? Some people are saying, can we just sell off some of those assets that we cannot handle? What's your recommendation? Briefly, because I want to ask you political questions.
Okay, the paper I presented in Davos, which was well received, as you know, was based on the Abadan project in Africa, but zeroing down on Nigeria, because that was a critical point. And every international organization is looking at what happened to your infrastructure. Why are you bombarding us with infrastructure requests? And in Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu met 11,886 federal government Abadan projects. I'm not talking about state government Abadan projects, oh. I'm not talking about local government.
No, but one media, Senator, just a moment. One media platform fact-checked you and said that number that you are exaggerating, that the abandoned projects are not that many. Maybe they didn't go to school. President Jonathan set up a committee, and I'm sure he's hearing me now, headed by Minister of War Bunu, and they have to go around the whole country and identify federal government mega project abandoned, not ordinary projects. Mega project, something above $10 billion naira. So mega project abandoned. The report was presented to President Jonathan. 11,886 mega projects abandoned. Google it. I have the list of all the projects abandoned. And maybe I'm the only person or one or two people that have the list in Nigeria. Now, 3 of the abandoned projects is 30% of your national debt. Ajaokuta, you put $11 billion and you are not producing one single steel. And you are still putting money. You think that is reasonable? You think that is normal? The last night Senate appropriated $5 billion for payment of salary monthly to Ajaokuta. No steel is produced. That is Ajaokuta for you. Now, second Niger Bridge. What is the completion percentage of that project? Sure P, $4.6 billion was spent. Tell me the address of Sure P now. SAT 1, successful. SAT 2 was lost in orbit. Where is the insurance that pay for the damages? 11,000, look at National Library on your way, just right here in Abuja. Don't you see National Library there? 18 years abandoned by contractor, and government has spent about 386 billion naira. And they still require 295 billion naira to commence the project. I asked President Jonathan when I was writing my Cambridge PhD thesis, why is it that when you came, you couldn't fix the National Library and you have a PhD? And he told me, Jim, I called them to bring the file to my office. They brought the file. They said they're on the 4th floor. I told them, all right, go now and roof it. Don't go to 13th floor again. Roof it at 4th floor so that we can have a library. Then they came back to him. The cost of roofing at 4th floor is more than the cost of taking to 13th floor. Then you not hands off completely. Why are we like this in this country? I was with Dr. Ngozi Uwala the other time when I was privileged to be at Geneva. We went to her office. This is the same thing we discussed. Why are we like this? Why do we have 11,886 projects abandoned and you are not doing anything about it? What about Calabar Power Plant? Which Jonathan won that commission after spending $2.1 billion, only 2 turbines were working. When he left and he told Abuja, the 2 collapsed. He was to commission 7 turbines. And who is the owner of that power plant now? So you see, if you have all these abandoned projects littering all over the place, how do you want Tinubu to be able to come up and say, I want to do the iron? Because you look at Ajaokuta, for example, iron oil that needs to power Ajaokuta is not even sufficiently enough. And it was in the EPI report, environmental impact analysis, that was handed over to General Obasanjo when he was president. I went to General Obasanjo and he's listening to me now. Now, why is it, Baba? Before you left, you arranged Russia Exim Bank $675 million to fix Ajaokuta, and you handed over to Shagari, and the money was there, so money was not an issue. So why Ajaokuta was not completed? When you came back for the second time, are you not worried that there's a problem here? And he told me he went to the contractor, and the contractor said he cannot come and touch Ajaokuta anymore. So he had to look for what to do. Meanwhile, you are privatizing by unbonding most of those things that Ajaokuta needed to different owners. How do you think that will work? Well, Senator,
with 11,886 federal government projects abandoned, do you think Tinubu will fix them in 8 months?
Senator Ibrahim, well, I want to begin to wrap up.
Because you are saying to me, 11,000 is a big figure. What is the number that was abandoned?
Okay, I just recall that some people fact-checked you, and they were saying you were exaggerating. But let's talk politics. Now,
but the World Bank confirmed my figure.
Okay.
Ruben, the World Bank confirmed my figure, and they give kudos to me, and they want me to do it for the entire Africa. And I said, I haven't got the time to look at abandoned project in the whole Africa. Let me tell you quickly, what the World Bank is looking at is to see that anytime you bring application loan, loan for application for loan in any country. We want to look at whether you are using the money for the abandoned project or you are going to create a new project that will be abandoned. It was based on my advice.
Okay, Senator Ibrahim, the political issues, if we could just treat those ones quickly. When there was this issue about budget 2024, and Senator Abdul Ningi raised some questions, you accused Senator Ningi of critical misinformation. And you said, in fact, he should be suspended for a much longer time than he got. But we are hearing now in the reports, we're seeing in the reports that, Senator Ningi is likely to return to the Senate and that, the matter has been resolved. So are you still accusing him of...
Who resolved the matter? Do you resolve the senatorial matter that had to affect the entire Senate, of the plenary? So the key issue about Ningi is not personal. It's that there are distortment of information, and which to me is misinformation, and which serves as criminal issue. Because apart from the Senate have power under its rule to discipline members that are not complying with the rules of the Senate, being a fit and proper person. We passed a budget. The federal government, president brought a budget of 27 point something trillion, and we passed that budget. We increased it. We have power to increase to 28. We increased it. Ningi is saying it's 25 billion. He's a member of our population. I'm a member of our population. Where is 25 billion approved? Did the president bring to budget of 25 billion? No. Trillion. No. So Ningi is looking at 3 trillion naira that was supposed to be on first charge line of the budget, and he didn't consider that one to be part of the budget. This is very disheartening. This is unfortunate, and this is not fair. And the implication of that, why I was so passionate about, I moved the motion. Mind you, I moved the motion at the floor of the Senate. What I was passionate about it is all about Akpabio. What has Akpabio done in passing the budget? Federal government president laid the budget before us, 27 point something trillion. We increase it because we look at the price of oil and all that. We put a 28, and then Ningi is saying it's 25. How? And what we did was to say, okay, under order 9 and 10 of our red book, we decided, okay, this is misinformation. And he started managing the information. But when you tell one lie, you need so many lies to cover up. Oh, I didn't say it was budget padding. Do you know that the presidency have to respond to this? And do you know the pleasure of that for us? Just 1 minute. Do you know the pleasure of that for us on the 15th of April, where we go to the World Bank to attend the next auxiliary meeting? It is the fact that, are you operating two budgets, Nigeria? How do you want us to clear that if we don't make that move? Okay. So whatever proposal the coordinating minister of finance will take to the World Bank will be difficult to be attended to if your integrity is already blemished. So you have to do something critically urgent. And what has Aswaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu done that deserve all this nonsense? Well, and again, account is listen. Account. Just a minute, my brother. Account is historical. It's not futuristic. Have they spent the money in such a way that they have stolen it?
Well, Senator
you
Ibrahim,
cannot audit what has not been spent.
Senator Ibrahim,
you can only spend what has been spent.
Senator Ibrahim,
so yes.
I have very limited time.
Yes,
I just have 2 quick questions for you. One is, one of the fallouts of that controversy over Ningi's protest was that Nigerians got to hear that, senators collected money. And some senators said they collected so amount. So how much did Senator Jimoh Ibrahim collect as a constituency allowance? Or they shared the money they didn't give you?
I didn't collect 1 kobo.
Oh. So why didn't they give you out of it?
I didn't collect. I'm not in the Senate. Listen, wait, listen. You are misquoting it, Ruben. Let's be fair. Allocating projects to constituency. Is it not collecting cash? If projects are looking at the constituency, contractors will go and handle the project. I don't have any project that I'm the contractor of the project. And the same thing with my distinguished senators. So what they said was that some senators got allocation beyond certain number to their constituency project. Not that they got money, not that they got cash. And like I told you, account is historical. It's not futuristic. Could it be said now that a senator has embezzled or collected cash in hand of a project that will be done in November, 3rd quarter or 4th quarter of the year budget? Has cash been disbursed to that senator? We are just in April. March, end of March. This budget was passed in January. We discussed in February. Have you got financial release? In fact, supplementary budget live is suspended till June. So are you now saying that the senators now have collected cash in their pocket for a budget that is just passed and again that don't be passed? And when accounting is historical, it's not futuristic. Are you going to be dealing with them or jailing them for futuristic fraud that has not occurred? Accounting is historical. You must be able to do something in the past that can be audited or investigated. It is just nonsensical to say senators have collected money, senators have collected rice. This is not right. And Nigerians should learn how to treat their senators with good respect. 2 days ago, I was able to preside as temporary president of Interparliamentary in Geneva. You know that. And we have basic ethics that we will follow. Akpabio has been governor for how many years? He has been ministers, he has been senator, he's back as Senate president. So he has collected cash down within January and February into his pocket for his constituency budget. Well, don't let me nasty. This is not good.
Well, Senator Ibrahim.
This is not good. This is not good at all. I'm not happy with this.
Senator Ibrahim.
Yes.
Briefly.
Yes.
In less than 1 minute, you have collected expression of interest from nomination form to run for the governorship position in your state, Ondo State. You seem to be enjoying this senatorial position. So what are you looking for in Ondo State, where the incumbent governor, who is also from your party, says he's interested? What is the big deal? Briefly.
Incumbent is interested. What's my business with that? He has not been able to win any election in his lifetime. He was a peer to Akiti. He contested House of Rep. He didn't win. I contested for the senatorial election in Ondo State. I won in the 6 of the 6 local government. I won in 65 of the 66 wards. I got 11,887 votes. 11,677 votes. My competitor, I gave him a discount of about 68,000 votes. He was a former deputy governor. What are we talking about? I'm interested in developing my people. The governorship has been zoned to Ondo South. I'm the senator representing Ondo South. I'm the political leader of Ondo South. So what are we talking about? One governor is interested, governor is not interested. Tell me, which election has the governor been able to win since he started his political life? He was a peer to Akiti. We voted for Akiti. So when he ran on his own for House of Representatives, they didn't win 2 local governments. He was able to win the 2 local governments. He couldn't even win 1. So you are now saying we cannot exercise our fundamental human right to run for governorship. I'm the oldest person that more people run for the election. In 2003, did you forget, Ruben, that I ran an election with Baba Adefrat and Agagmu, and I got 147,000 votes. So what are we talking about? It's my turn to be there to help develop the economy, to make sure that the hills in Idari, in Akoko, looking at us, and we're looking at the hills. We cannot do our roads, and we have contours in the roads. To make sure that we can do swap agreement with Jonas Berger and get the road fixed up. To make sure that the bitumen, $47 billion, I got to central bank geophysical data, lying down in Agbabu, is brought out so that we can do our own and fix it. We can get employment and increase the GDP of that country. To put the secondary school back to boarding house, which we enjoy during our Awolowo days. So what are we talking about? What is wrong in developing my state? Haven't made an impact. I descended in less than 8 months. I came here in less than 8 months, and I've been president of 148 General Assembly of Interparliamentary, at the United Nations. So you see, the key point here is that it's not about me alone. It's about development of our state. It's about ensuring that Ondo State is an oil producing state. It has a budget of 385 billion naira. But we're a river state producing the same oil. It's having 900 billion. Let it be equitable. Let it have justice. Let it be fairness. Let there be development. And let's move on. Thank you.
On that note, I'd like to thank you very much, Senator Jimoh Ibrahim, for joining us on This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show.